Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind, our 92nd episode, a week earlier than you might have expected. We're doing a 3-week blitz, but yeah, obviously a little bit shorter time between episodes this time around. But Niles, how have you been the last week since we recorded?
You know, it's been great. I went camping, got nice and drunk up in the mountains, always a good time, and I got... For our listeners who tune in to the visuals on YouTube here, look at my new headphones. Aren't they nice?
Oh, my God. Look at them go.
I'm upgrading. I'm turning into, a true 21st century man.
Yes.
How about you, Dylan? How have you been?
Good. Pretty busy. Had like my big work team summit for my job, which is not this podcast, if you all did not know that. I have another job that allows me to pay for the things for this podcast.
Right. Me too.
Yeah, that was we both have day jobs, and we do this at night. But yeah, no, that was a crazy week. It was a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of my coworkers in person that I hadn't met before, so it was a good time. Also had some family in town this weekend. And, just went out around Denver, did some fun Colorado things, and chilled. And now it's back to work again.
The cycle repeats.
Yes, it does.
Can't get away from it. But we are not here to talk about work, are we?
No, we're not.
We are here to talk about a movie called Deadpool and Wolverine.
Indeed. Yes, and Deadpool and Wolverine is the third film in the Deadpool trilogy, and follows the infamous Merc with a Mouth, Wade Wilson, as he seeks out the help of a Wolverine from somewhere across the multiverse in order to help him prevent the destruction of his world and those he holds dear. Directed by Sean Levy and written by Levy, Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Zeb Wells. The film stars Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin, Matthew McFadden, Morena Baccarin, and many more with some surprise appearances. Niles, what are your initial non-spoiler thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine?
I'm mostly positive on this film. This is a good time overall. As I start to kind of dive in here, I want to preface this by saying I've seen the first Deadpool. I've not seen the second one. I've only seen some clips here and there from that one. So I didn't feel too lost because of those clips. Kind of helped provide a little bit of context for this movie for me. But I definitely need to go back and rewatch and watch that movie. Because at times I was a little confused in this third movie here, but I think that this is a pretty solid installment in the Deadpool franchise. This third film, it's a lot of fun. I think I enjoyed it. I loved most of it. I think I really liked all the fourth wall breaks, and we'll get into everything that I really did enjoy overall. I think it's fun. There's a lot of funny moments, a lot of comedic moments, but I think in the performances are really great. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they just knock it out of the park, I would say. They really do embody these characters really well, and I think a lot of the jokes landed. I think if I have to name a few issues that I had with this movie, I think it ultimately boils down to two things, without getting too far into spoilers, is fan service and a lack of focus in certain areas. There's a lot going on here, and this another multiversal movie, and there's some meta commentary about that here, and I like that, but there's some things I think just kind of bog this movie down a little bit too much and just kind of get in the way of the story in some ways. But what about you? What are your initial thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, so I thought this was all right. I think it's probably the weakest of the three Deadpool films and is certainly the least focused, as you alluded to. But there's still a decent amount of really fun moments with, I think, some strong moments of sincerity. I think those were the best parts of the movie, and it needed more of that. And I'm also sure that a lot of the film's weaknesses, specifically around the lack of focus, probably had something to do with them filming during the writer's strike. And yeah, so it's like, if for those of you who don't know, like obviously screenwriting happens in pre-production, but a lot of these productions will have writers on set in case, something's not working on the day and you want to rewrite a scene, or improving is considered writing and you want to try something out. And I remember when this was filming, because these movies are very improv heavy, and it's like, is Ryan, are they crossing the picket line? Because if they so much as deviate from the script a little bit, that is crossing the picket line. So I'm curious how different this movie would have been if the writer's strike had concluded before production happened.
I didn't even think about all that. I just had no idea that this was going on during the writer's strike.
And one issue I do have that I think has less to do with the film itself, but more just to do with me, is I am no longer as entertained by the irony poison tone that a lot of Deadpool's character, at least in the films, centers around, his comedy specifically. So a lot of the jokes here just do not land for me. But I don't think that's specific to this one, because I actually reviewed Deadpool 2 as a written review on my website. Remember, I used to do those way back before we started this show. And but I went back to watch Deadpool 2 a couple years ago, and I laughed a lot less at that as well. So I think my sense of humor has changed. My attitude around irony has changed a little bit as well. But yeah, and I'll say more in spoilers, but I also found the film strangely mean-spirited in a couple of moments. And I'll talk more about that in spoilers, because there's one specific thing that I was like, oh, that feels kind of weird to put that here. And I know Deadpool is a dick. He's an asshole. But some of the stuff felt like it happened at the wrong point in the narrative in his character's journey for how kind of shitty it was to the people around him,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that being said, I do and have always really respected Ryan Reynolds' commitment to this character and how much he's poured in the franchise over the years. It's very easy to forget now, because this movie is slated to make over $1 billion by the end of next week. Wow. It's already made $500 million. So it's easy to forget this, but we wouldn't even be seeing it if someone basically confirmed to be Ryan Reynolds hadn't leaked the first film's test footage from Fox, remember? Because they weren't going to make this movie. And he did that, and, respect. He clearly cares a lot about this character and this property and wants it to be good. And I think he is very good as the character. I also think Hugh Jackman is, once again, great as Logan, Wolverine, as always. The only problem with him here is that we already said our farewells to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine 7 years ago in a better movie.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
I totally get that. Yeah. I mean, Logan is it's so untouchable. It's so great. It's such a fun movie, and it is so emotionally impactful. So I agree that we already kind of said goodbye to him, but it is nice to see him back on screen. I'm sure that they just drove a dump truck full of money up to his house, and he was like, I can't say no. I have to go back.
Yeah. Well, and also he and Ryan Reynolds are great friends in real life,
right.
And Hugh Jackman has really, I think, loved playing this character for a quarter century now, which is kind of insane to think about. But some things I did like a lot. I liked the villains. I won't say who specifically some of them are, but and I also like some of the world building that happens in one location in particular. Cassandra Nova is a pretty neat character, and her powers are really upsetting to look at in action. You know what I mean? And I thought that was very fun. But I think basically the thing with all these Deadpool movies is they're trying to find the right balance between telling their own emotionally satisfying stories and being quippy meta commentaries on the genre. And I think this one, more than the other two, strays a bit too far into the latter territory, but I did still overall enjoy my time with it.
Yeah.
So.
I agree that with a lot of your points there, and I really do like Ryan Reynolds at the end of the day. He's because he's got that agency and everything, maximum effort, and he's just so gun ho about this character. Like, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who like brought this franchise really to the big screen and actually like got people interested in it and showed that it could make some money.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about like, yeah, going back and watching like the second one, I remember like a few years ago, I went back and watched the first one with my family,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just not that the jokes just didn't land as well. And I think like a part of it is like recency.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are some kind of timely jokes in that movie about like shake weights and like other kinds of like topical things at the
Yeah.
time. So I think, and I don't think that everything is necessarily topical in these movies, but it's like, I think like the longer the more time that elapses from when these movies are made, I think
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get diminishing returns on the humor and how funny it is, and especially if you've already seen it too. I think then you're already
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I know it's coming, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I think this one has its own flavor of that too. Like there are a lot of cancel culture jokes and like jokes about like wokeness and whatever. And I was like, okay, man, we fucking get it. It's like there are some jokes that really land and are great and are pretty clever. There's one visual one later on that I need to put a note down before I forget. But there's some where it's like some jokes do feel like weak SNL skits. You know,
yeah, that's a good way to put
like
it.
like Ryan Reynolds. I have like some. I think he's being very creatively boring in a lot of his performance choices in the last several years, just because he's such a brand now, you know? And I think I've said on the show before, I was worried about going into this movie because, like, I associate him more as a Mint Mobile spokesperson than I do an actor at this point.
Oh.
And I did appreciate that when I was watching this. It's like, oh, he feels like the character again, and he's doing a good job at that. But I think I forgot where I was going with that, actually. But whatever.
It'll come to you. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's to your point. He's very good at what he does when he wants to be.
Yes.
You know, and
He's very talented.
Yes,
He's just
absolutely.
he and The Rock are kind of doing the same thing. They've been making very uninteresting creative choices in the roles they pick. Very brand safe for their brand. I think you can, like, someone would be like, Deadpool's not brand safe. It's like it is for Ryan Reynolds because it's his, you know.
Oh yeah, this is what people have come to expect from him. This kind of crude humor and this,
Yeah.
you know, off the cuff quips, tongue in cheek kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, any final non-spoiler thoughts before we jump in?
No, let's go on in.
All right.
Let's jump on into the spoilers for Deadpool and
Yeah.
Wolverine.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I'll say I was honestly kind of surprised and a little disappointed by how little time the Deadpool regular side characters were in this. Like, I understand they want to focus on Wade and Logan, but characters like Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Vanessa, and Dopender have been pretty core parts of this series from the first movie and the second movie, and like they essentially get 2 group scenes together, and that's it. And it's like I like them a lot, and I wish we'd spent more time with them. You know?
Yeah, right. Well, and like these characters, like, you know, they've been there from the first one, and like, you know, Colossus and Negasonic, you know, they were kind of there because it was like, well, we can't get all the X-Men. Let's just get like some that like aren't really X-Men or like, you know, don't really, you know, aren't super well known or just kind of their own characters. So it's like, I agree that I wish I saw some of these side characters more in this film. And you know, it's nice to see them. And they had some funny quips there where, you know, they're standing around and he's like talking to Colossus and he's like, so what have you been watching lately? He's like, Great British Bake Off. it's like, all right, yeah, that's kind of funny. I like that.
Yeah.
Or just like his friend Peter with the chains around his nipples.
Peter's from the second one, and his role in that is very funny.
Yeah,
Do you remember
he's-
It's in the trailer for the second one, what his role is in the
Oh
team.
yeah, he's just like some guy who's just like, I
He's
saw
just
the
some
ad.
guy.
I saw the ad and I wanted to participate. It's like, you're in the team.
Yeah.
And one thing too, like, yeah, I wish that we saw the gang kind of more together, kicking ass, or at least like kind of have some tiny little team up. But they don't need to be involved all the time,
Right.
Because this movie is like really about Deadpool and Wolverine, I would say, but it's also about them. But one thing that was kind of I noticed as soon as like the the guy Weasel, right? Like,
Yeah. Well.
where was he? They
Oh.
dropped him.
Oh yeah, they dropped T.J. Miller because there were multiple sexual assault allegations against him. Those came out like several years ago, and Ryan Reynolds, to his credit, was like immediately cut him out. So
That
yeah,
makes a lot more
that's
sense.
why
Like,
there is no Weasel.
I completely forgot about those, so I apologize.
No, you want to,
But-
no, it's
but,
totally
yeah,
fine. But that's why he didn't appear. But like, I like someone like Colossus and Negasonic, like they're always involved in the action in these movies, and they're not around at all. And like Cable from the second one doesn't come back. Maybe because Kevin Feige was like, I don't want Josh Brolin playing another character in the MCU right now or something. But whatever. But one thing I did like, just a quick tangent, is just like, as in the case with the Loki show, I love the design of everything to do with the TVA. It's so great, and it's great here too. It, I think, maintains and expands the visual language of that organization into this. And I also think the core idea of Wade desperate to save his friends from the death of their world works. Like, as we've clearly been alluding to, like, we've gotten to really like these people over the course of this trilogy, and they are one of the only things that Wade is not constantly quipping about and making fun of. I think this is one area where the Deadpool films are unafraid to just be fully genuine, sincere, and heartfelt, which really works. And I think Deadpool himself makes jokes of things just a bit too much at times. But I do ultimately like enjoy him as a protagonist, and I like Reynolds in the role. But he does like fall into, you know, bathos, right? Where the dramatic tension of a scene is undercut by an unnecessary quip. And Marvel movies are guilty of this a lot. Deadpool more than most, even though it is more appropriate for him to do so than other characters. Sometimes, even with him, it goes too far.
I get that. But yeah, I think his character, he's got kind of this. It's not necessarily plot armor, but it kind of is in a way. Like, you expect him to make these like these really kind of raunchy jokes, talk about you know, dicks and all this kinds of other. You know, just
thrusting back and
vulgar
forth
shit.
between stabbing a man's asshole and stabbing another guy's dick in the middle of the screen. It's like,
yeah,
nope.
that's a little crude, but you know, I think it's a lot more appropriate for him to be doing it rather than, you know, we've talked about like Thor: Love and Thunder before, kind of. You know, we were mostly positive on that movie, I think, when it came out.
At the time.
But at the time, yeah. As time has gone on, we've realized, no, that was a mistake. We're not very positive on that. But there's like a scene in that movie, you know, where it's just like Jane reveals that she has like cancer or something like that, and then like literally the next scene is like a joke to just kind of undercut that. And in that context, it doesn't really work that well. But I think within Deadpool's, it's a little more appropriate and it works a little bit better. But I agree with you that the premise of this works, of him wanting to save his friends and protect them, because they are kind of the heart and soul of these movies. Even if I haven't seen the second one, I remember in the first one being like, I love Dopinder. He's so fun.
Yeah.
He's such a cool character. I want more of him. I want a whole movie
I know.
of just Deadpool and Dopinder, you know?
Yeah, doing crime. Yeah, it really works. And like with Deadpool as a character, I do find him kind of annoying sometimes. But I am ultimately invested in his success throughout this movie and all of them. Like, I want him to do the thing he's trying to do and to come through the other side stronger. So I think he works in that way. And again, like, I think this goes back to my earlier point. It's like, I don't think anything has changed in the Deadpool movies or the Deadpool character. I think my taste has just changed a little bit, and I find Deadpool a little bit more grating than I did 6 years ago or whenever the last one came out, you know? But let's move on to talk about the other main character, Wolverine, and how he was used in this movie. Like I said, in non-spoilers, big fan of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. He is borderline synonymous with the character for me because I grew up on the Fox X-Men movies. But as I said in the non-spoilers, like, I was comfortable having said goodbye to him in Logan. How did you feel about all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I love Hugh Jackman in this role. I think he's kind of the perfect one for it.
Mm-hmm.
He really fits the mold, and yeah, I really can't imagine anyone else in this role. With a little asterisk, because there's a good cameo in this movie that I think may have worked out okay. But I really do like Hugh Jackman in this, and I agree that it is kind of weird to see him back on screen, just considering that we said goodbye to his character. Like, he had such a impactful emotional death that it's like, well, does this detract from that? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's been a few years. I'm willing to let that kind of go.
Yeah, it's like the movie still exists. It's just as good as it ever was, and now it's just this other thing as well. And I have seen plenty of people who are more like religious readers of comics than either of us say it's like, well, welcome to comics. This is how it always is. And I think we both know that. We understand that. But to me, it's one of the elements of comic book storyline or storytelling that I least enjoy. And it is the thing that prevents me from going from like a reader of specific trade paperbacks to a full-on comic reader. Like, I don't want to get invested in a dramatic arc only for a new writer to come on and then that arc be like narratively retconned into something else. Like, I don't find that satisfying, and it's a barrier to entry for me with comics. So it's like, I agree. Welcome to comics. This is how it goes. I just don't like that particularly.
That's fair.
Yeah, but I don't think it necessarily... I mean, it literally does disrespect the film Logan in the first scene. And you know what? I appreciate the honesty. Just up front, we're going to literally dig up his grave. I did feel like it was a little unnecessary, like, because ultimately they go in a different direction anyway. But, it's fine. Whatever. All that being said, like, Hugh Jackman he really gives it his all here. He's good in this movie, and he looks pretty good in the suit. You finally get to see him in the Wolverine costume.
Yeah.
He kind of pulls it off. I think the mask works less well than the rest of the suit. I don't know if it's because it was like a bad special effect or the mask, or if it was a physical mask. It just didn't look great, but
it was a little silly and cartoonish, but fuck it.
Yeah.
Just fuck it.
But like, he gets a really good looking version of that mask in a deleted scene of the Wolverine, the Japan one. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it was just like trying to do a CGI mask because that's how they do the Deadpool mask, and it just didn't work quite as well. I don't know. But the suit itself looked great.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And on his backstory, though, I think one note I would give is that his dark past could have been a little bit more fucked up. I think they should have gone the route that I think the Old Man Logan comic does, where I think it's Mysterio who causes him to like see things that aren't really there, leading him to kill all the X-Men. And then that's part of what leads to the post-apocalypse or something. Like, if he's meant to be the worst Wolverine in this movie, make him the worst one. What he did, like, kind of understandable. I understand his perspective.
Yeah. Well, it is such like it feels very simple in a lot of ways. We're just like, he just went off and just got drunk, and then he came back and all of his friends were dead, and then he
got revenge.
Yeah, and then he just got revenge and just killed a whole lot of people and turned the world against the X-Men. It's like, yeah, that sucks. But I think, I agree with you that I think it could have been worse. I think his backstory felt a little subdued, especially when you're like, when you look at some of those other universes that Deadpool visited. Like, there's that one where it's just Wolverine up on a cross surrounded by a field of skulls. I'm like, what the fuck happened there? Like, is that something out of the comics? Like, that looks so that is interesting right there. Yeah. And I want to know how that Wolverine fucked up and got to that situation. That seems like a really interesting story of failure or something, some kind of crazy fuck up. And so I think that could have been even better. But I don't know. I think that, there could have been a way to make it a little bit worse and make it communicate to the audience that he really is the worst Wolverine.
Yeah, like I don't know. I understand why they didn't make him worse as well. Like, because I think it's possible where if you take it too far, then the general audience is going to be like, oh, I don't really want to root for this guy, you know. But I think maybe they did a little bit too much kitty gloves with his backstory. Like, it's sad, but it's not really his fault, you know.
Right? Yeah,
Like,
I totally get that.
like you turn the whole world against the X-Men, but the X-Men are already dead. So, you know.
Oh well. But
But
do you want to talk about the villains?
yeah, I think we should. That's just the most clear-cut positive for me were the villains. Like we'll start with Cassandra Nova and the Void. I thought she was a lot of fun, and I love that she runs her own like little supervillain operation out of an Ant-Man skeleton, a giant Ant-Man skeleton, and the helmet opens up, and that's like her front door.
Yeah, I think that's so creative. That's just so cool.
Yeah, which I like. Going back to the Eternals, you remember the big dude who comes out of the ocean? You know, the big, yeah. So one, apparently, that is how they're introducing adamantium into the MCU. His body is going to be made out of it.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine. But I maintain that supervillain layers are awesome and that guy's head should become a supervillain layer. Supervillain
100%.
should be operating out of his big fucking head, and then there can be a big battle, like a James Bond villain layer. You know, that's what I want that guy to be. But
I agree.
yes, the contrast with Cassandra's powers with Professor X was great as well. I think it's like she can also read people's minds and sort of manipulate their thoughts and stuff like that. But she has to like reach into their skull and move her. It's really fucking gross looking.
Oh,
but
it's creepy.
I like it, and I thought the effect was decent as well. It didn't take me out or anything, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I thought that was such a cool effect, and she's really intimidating. You know, like she's got like this telepathy, this telekinesis. Like she can get into people's heads, but then she's also just like, oh, doesn't matter about you. Just bing bang boom, you're dead. You know, with the flick of a finger, like she is a magician to like the highest caliber. So I think that she was really intimidating and threatening. So I really did enjoy her as an antagonist here.
I also just really liked the idea that the supervillain built her own little empire on the TVA's like trash planet, and that there's a resistance against her and all this other stuff. I love that the Void or whatever it was called in Loki, if it was called something different, it feels much bigger than it did in that show. Like it is a whole universe in and of itself.
Yeah.
And you get fun jokes like the 20th Century Fox logo in there, along with a bunch of other stuff. But
yeah, lots of good visual gags in that whole sequence, especially with the cameos too. But I think it's very, they were intentional about those kinds of little nuggets being dropped in there into the void all throughout the way. And I really enjoyed the other antagonist here, Mr. Paradox. He's such like a kind of sniveling little like conniving like weasel in a way.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to do this thing that he really become this time ripper and just do the thing that people don't want to do anymore, which is genocide. You know, he wants to commit genocide on a universal scale, and it's like, dude, no, stop it.
Yeah, well, I like his because he's like a mid-level TVA guy, right? And I was wondering how the TVA would fit into this, and if it was going to like actually tie into the way Loki wrapped up and everything. But I like the idea that this mid-level dude who's in charge of a very specific type of task is basically doing a skunkworks operation against the orders of like what Loki, Mobius, and B-15 set up in Loki season 2. And he's like, well, these fucking universes are going to die anyway, so like let's just do it. Let's just get it over with. Which is how the TVA used to operate, right? Like it was just kind of like, this is the job, you know, they're out of sync with the timeline, so we just got to purge them. And it's very inhumane, but it's a very like dry way of thinking about this operation, because at the end of the day, the TVA is a bunch of like pencil pushers. It's just the pencils they're pushing are the lives of hundreds of millions of like beings every time.
Yeah, it's
just a fun idea.
It's absurd. But yeah, he's a very fun character, and I love Matthew McFadden in this role. It's just right up his alley. Like, we know him as Tom Wamsgams from Succession, and in that role he was a sniveling little shit, and in this role he's a sniveling little shit too. So it just feels like a good little great character for him.
Yeah. I forget. I was trying to look up the quote really quick from what he said a while back about superhero movies, but he said something like it was like how you would basically only ever do them if you were paid like inordinate amounts of money or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's very funny that he was then cast in this movie. But yeah, in a very Tom Wamsgans type role, I feel like, and just a fun little bit of trivia, I guess. This is very stupid, but one of the protagonists of this movie is named Logan, of course, and Tom or Matthew McFadden is in Succession with Brian Cox, who plays a character named Logan, and Brian Cox is the villain of X-Men 2, William Stryker, who is the one who erases Logan's memory.
Oh my God! It's all coming together. The pieces are falling into place.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe includes Logan Roy.
Succession is now a part of the cinematic.
Fuck off. But yeah, sorry, that's stupid, but I thought it was funny.
I love that. I love the idea of Logan like just shouting at like Happy Hogan and being like "fuck off," or something like that.
Yeah, during his maybe late 60s, early 70s, Logan Roy took a sabbatical. He went into military weaponry, experimental weapons, and developed the Weapon X program. And he came back and ran Royco. Waystar Royco. After
Waystar Royco.
Yeah, they didn't talk about that in the show, but it's part of. It's in the expanded lore if you read the novels.
Oh, one day maybe we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the action scenes.
Yes.
For me, most of them are kind of the weakest element of this movie. I don't think Sean Levy is as talented of a visual director as the two that came before him, and I think that is most apparent in the action scenes. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you to a certain extent, because I'm going to push back a little bit, because I think the fight scenes between Deadpool and Wolverine, whenever they're fighting, like the first fight scene, like with the 20th Century Fox in the background.
That one I liked.
That one was cool. I really liked that one. I thought that was really neat and clever. And then when they're fighting in the car, I thought that was a really fun sequence. I thought that was very creative. And they're just like, just jump back into the car. Just jump back into the car and just keep fighting. And I think that the final fight sequence with the Deadpool horde, basically, I thought that was pretty darn entertaining. But I will agree that it's kind of messy at times, the fight sequences, the action sequences, and especially like the assault on Cassandra Nova's compound in the Void. I thought that one was just a mess. It felt confusing, unfocused, and kind of bereft of logic to a degree. Like there were these guys, like just breaking down the scene a little bit. There's these guys like that are on the same floor, like on the ground with the Deadpool gang, with these guys, all these characters, part of the Resistance, and then you have these other guys up on like another level with guns, just like loaded and ready to fire, and it's like they have the accuracy of stormtroopers. It's like, what the fuck, guys? Like, you can't shoot shit up there.
You're right, but also that's all of these.
I know, yeah. Like you have to find a way to kind of. Yeah, like if they're gonna be there, they can't shoot them immediately.
Yeah.
But like in my opinion, they could have just done away with those guys up there with the guns and just made it like a classic kind of like back in the the Fox X-Men movies where it's just like mutant against mutant, just like you're a complete opposite on the other side and you're just fighting against them. Like I think that would have been really cool.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, like I don't. To be fair, like I push back on you a little bit, but I think this action sequence is my least favorite in the movie because it's supposed to be this big last hurrah for all the Forgotten Fox characters we'll talk about in a minute, but it's shot so poorly that you don't really get a good look at all the cool stuff they're doing, you know? And you get like a little bit of Gambit doing some whatever card stuff he does, and that's fun, but it's you just don't that you like in a moment like that, I'm like, oh, it's going to give a nice little section for each of them to shine. They're going to get their own like good shot, really good action beat, and then we're going to move on to the next one. And we just, not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one fight between Deadpool and Wolverine in the desert was, I think, a good bit of fun. I liked the one shot where Deadpool's katana is coming out of its sheath, like towards the camera, and he catches it. That was a fun little shot there. I'm sure that was meant for 3D or something. That would probably be fun in 3D.
Yeah. Right.
And I also liked in the car fight you mentioned, just that it's set up earlier in the movie that he thinks his car sucks and he's a car salesman now, and then at the end of the fight he's like, no, I take it back, this car fucks, this is awesome.
It's like, this is actually a good time in here, I like this.
Yeah. One other thing I want to say though that I've alluded to already is there are some parts that are just weirdly mean-spirited to me, or like mean at the wrong time, and the one that really stood out to me was how Deadpool uses Nicepool as a human shield at the end of the movie. And I think, like, it's funny, kind of, especially with the reveal that he does not regenerate. It's, but I think this would have felt fine earlier in the film. But him using another character as a meat shield during the sequence it's meant to be the final heroic self-sacrifice fight felt off, you know? It's like...
I see where you're coming from.
It's like Deadpool should have been the meat shield for someone else in this scene, not the way it went out, you know? And like, again, I know he's an asshole, but he always comes around by the end of the movie, and at this point he's like pretty committed to the mission and, you know, doing the right thing. So it felt weird doing it at this point. And this is something that I have a feeling if there were writers on set, maybe someone would have been like, hey, this doesn't really feel right here. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should tweak this scene a little bit. But I forgot to say, because you mentioned it on the action scenes, the fight against the Deadpool crew. I did really like one shot in that. It's like as they're walking from like screen left to screen right, and then the Deadpools like overwhelm them and they go off screen. Like the fight goes off screen really quickly, and it looks like they're gonna get overwhelmed, and then they fight across the frame. I liked that a lot.
It's like a rugby scramble, you know, or whatever they call
Scrum.
that. Scrum. Thank you. Yeah. I thought that was very cool. And there was, it's kind of messy in that scene too, but like it felt a lot clearer than the fight in the void that we alluded to already.
Yeah, well, it was like this shot had a visual little story to it. Like there was clearly a flow and an intent to the action, whereas in a lot of these shots, I did not feel that as much.
I agree.
Yeah,
but I think one of the bigger draws of this movie is all the cameos, because there's a lot of.
There are
some. There's not a ton, but there's some. There's a lot of good cameos.
There's some surprising ones, I will say. Like,
yes.
Well, we can just list them off real quick and then go through them quickly one by one. But like, we get Jennifer Garner as Elektra. We get Wesley Snipes as Blade. We get Channing Tatum as Gambit. We get Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. We get Daphne Keane back as Laura, X-23. Henry Cavill as the Cavalrine, as he's credited. Aaron Stanford as Pyro. We also get, I forget his name, but like Sabretooth. There are a bunch more, but I listed off the main ones here. And then the Deadpool gang. But like one by one, Jennifer Garner as Elektra. Cool. I've not seen the movies she appears in, so I really had no real connection to her. But the joke at the expense of her and Ben Affleck's divorce, I thought was kind of funny and mean. It's like, oh, it was like, what happened to Daredevil? It's like, oh, he died. It's like, sorry, it's fine.
Yeah, really quick. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's cool. I never saw those movies either that she was really in, but
yeah,
she was.
Apparently,
cool.
they're not good. Like it was Ben Affleck's Daredevil, and then there was an Elektra spin-off sequel thing.
Okay,
but.
Yeah, I did like Wesley Snipes showing up because like it was really unexpected for me. I was like, I did not expect to see him on screen, and I
did not expect to see any of these first three at all. I was kind of shocked at the
Yeah, they were very interesting choices, and I really liked the jab that they kind of threw in there, where it was just like about the Blade reboot being continuously delayed. Like he stood up with like the bazooka, and he's just like, "There's only ever gonna be one Blade." It's like, yeah, probably at this rate.
Dude, if I was Mahershala Ali, I would have called Kevin Feige after this and been like, "Yeah, man, I think I'm done. I think fuck you."
Yeah, at this point, you really should.
Yeah, it's like it's a fun joke in this, but like, given the context of the production hell of that movie, like if I was involved in the production of that movie, it might actually piss me off.
Yeah.
I also thought there was a fun joke about how Wesley Snipes never really liked Ryan Reynolds. They worked together on Blade Trinity, and apparently Wesley Snipes fucking hated him. So
I get that.
And there's a dialogue. It's like he's like, I don't like you, and he's like, yeah, you never did. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, they're both aware, but very on the nose. Yeah. It's great, and Channing Tatum as Gambit. This was very fun. You know, he's a great on-screen version of Gambit, and just knowing what I know based on X-Men '97. It's like he felt very accurate. To that kind of characterization, and I liked the jokes thrown around about his terrible accent where he's like, did you learn how to speak English from the Minions or something? Like it's just so incomprehensible.
Yeah. Do you know why he is Gambit in this? Do you know the backstory of that? Okay. Channing Tatum has been trying to play Gambit and get a project off the ground since like 2012, and it has just never materialized, and that's the joke about him being like, maybe I was born in the void. Like, I don't remember where I came from. And it's like, because his franchise never existed. So he was just born in this area. I thought that was kind of fun. I can't figure out if the bad accent was bad on purpose for the sake of the jokes of this movie, or if he was trying and it was just bad. So they just went in this direction.
I like either route. I think I think it was funny.
Yeah. But you get Chris Evans as Johnny Storm / the Human Torch as well. Some people might not remember, I guess, that in the Fantastic Four movies, there were two of them in the early 2000s. He was the Human Torch. He was Johnny Storm. I actually had a lot of fun with this one and kind of wish he was in it more. I thought his dynamic with Logan and Wade was kind of fun. And, I will admit, you know what? I'm not going to give the movie credit for fooling me here, because it didn't fool me. It just lied to me. It showed me his wrist in the red, white, and blue and is playing the fucking Captain America music. And then it was like, never mind. It's Human Torch. So it was a fun reveal, but I don't think I'm going to give the movie credit for a twist because it just lied.
I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Yeah. So I thought it was a good reveal, and that was super funny to see him crash and burn and fail like that.
Oh my god, his death was so horrifying.
Yeah, oh god.
And Wade just totally throwing him under the fucking bus, to a biblical degree. He was fucking this man over. And I loved that. I loved Logan playing the straight man here, as he always does, I guess. But he's like, you just fucking got him killed. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Asshole. It's totally unnecessary, too. None of what he said was relevant at all. He did not have to say anything. But he did.
Right. It was so funny. and I'm so glad that we got Daphne Keane here as Laura or X-23, because I think it definitely works for her, because it builds upon what happened to Logan. We already are familiar with her, and she's a little bit older, and it's like, yes, 100%. She's a great addition here.
Yeah, I think this is the inclusion that works the best. To me, it's the only one that bothers to feel emotionally earned or important of any of them, because she ties in with this version of Wolverine's emotional arc. We have emotional history with her that connects her to these characters, even if she doesn't know this version of Logan, obviously. Of all the people in this movie, I hope she gets folded into the MCU X-Men proper when that comes, even like maybe as the MCU's version of Wolverine. Like, I think that would be fine. But I will say, absolutely bananas that they spoiled her inclusion in an official trailer like 5 days before the movie came out.
Oh man,
I don't know why they would do that. Apparently, actually, I do, because Weekly Planet mentioned it. Apparently, Kevin Feige made that decision because Daphne Keane wanted to go to the premiere. But, like, she could have just gone to the premiere. She was just in the Star Wars show. She's in the Disney, like, circle. She could have just been going to see. But, like, because it's just so strange because the film itself even treats the reveal of her as the main one. Like, it's more important than the other ones. But anyone who saw the trailer, which I did just by chance, knows she's about to show up. So it deflated the moment a little bit for me.
It
so I don't know.
Takes the wind out of your sails a little bit when she shows up. But I didn't see that trailer, so I was like, sweet, it's her. She's great. I love her.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to see Henry Cavill to just have a brief 5-second cameo in this movie. I did not expect that.
I didn't either. That kind of came out of left field, and it gave me a good laugh. Aaron Stanford as Pyro. Now, it honestly took me a while to recognize him because I have not seen the original 3 X-Men movies in a pretty long time now. And I didn't recognize even who he was when he like turned off Human Torch's flame at the beginning. But then at a certain point, I'm like, oh my god, it's that guy. I remember him.
I didn't really recognize him either. So, good memory, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we also get a big old Deadpool gang. Lots of Deadpools, lots of different Deadpools. We get a cowboy Deadpool, a floating head Deadpool, a lady Deadpool, an ice pool, the samurai Deadpool, all kinds of Deadpools, little kid Deadpools. It's like it's so much. It's kind of overwhelming in a way, and that. Oh man, I don't know if maybe it was just me, but that CGI on the flying little head Deadpool, I was like that is so jarring for me. I was like, no, I didn't need that.
Yeah, the budget was clearly spent elsewhere, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say that I liked Nice Pool. I thought he was kind of a fun addition, and just because he's so much the opposite of what Deadpool is, but he's still Deadpool, and I think I really liked his fourth wall break too, where he's like, I can do fourth wall breaks, and he just looks at the camera and says, "The proposal."
Yeah, I thought that was a great anti-joke. Like it's so fucking lazy that it circles back around to being funny and working. That was one of the better laughs I got in the movie, I think.
Yeah. It was. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah. I will say though, with regard to the cameos, I don't know where my note on this went, but I just circling back. But I will say, like, there is a moment with the cameos that is very clearly meant, structured in the same way that the No Way Home Spider-Man entrances are, around like it's structured for applause or cheers or laughter, like when Elektra walks in and then Blade walks in and then Gambit walks in. And at least in my theater, dead fucking silence.
Yeah.
Not a sound. And it's like, I don't really know what point I'm making with that, but it is very interesting that maybe there is a little bit of a shift in what audiences are wanting away from just this pure fan service stuff, because that is a moment that was clearly designed to hit an emotional chord, and maybe that's the difference between going on an opening night crowd and going on a Monday evening. But no one made a sound, and everybody had fun with the characters, I think, once they were introduced, but the reveal itself was a massive dud.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because while I enjoyed the cameos and I thought that they worked out well ultimately, just like you're saying, like once they start getting going, it's like, okay, this is really neat. I think the movie's a little overburdened with the fan service here. Of like they even like kept saying a similar line over and over again, and of just being like, give the fans what they want, you know, like as soon as they're having this Deadpool Wolverine fight, they're like, we're just gonna give the fans what they want. And they just kept saying that over and over again. And you know, I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with fan service like that. Is okay. But to me, it's, you know, it is a balancing act, and it felt like in this movie they're trying to cram in as many cameos, as many references as possible into this movie, and you get why, because it's Deadpool and he's being very meta, and he's kind of the only one who can really talk about Marvel and all these IPs and Disney and Fox and all these things, and be very on the nose about things. So it makes sense why he's cramming all this stuff in. But it's kind of too much at certain points, and it feels like I would rather have a story that's just focused on building up our protagonists even more, or just even our side characters, giving them a little bit more room to breathe, and just saying like, hey, look at this guy, look at this, you know, pointing at all these other big old cameos, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Like, outside of Laura, every cameo here was just sort of a like, hey, look at this guy. You remember this guy? And which is fine, but it doesn't add all that much, because it's not, and we talk about this all the time with fan service, right? It's fine if it's not the main attraction, and if it doesn't take away from the because it's never going to be the emotional core of your story. And I also think with regard to the cameos this movie chooses, I wonder if it's going to be strange for some more casual viewers, as there are some cameos, like the Gambit one, that rely on not only knowing the in-universe history, but knowing real-life production history about projects that sometimes never materialized. Like Reynolds and Snipes not getting along on the set of Blade Trinity, Tatum trying and failing to get a Gambit project off the ground. Like, a lot of people are not going to understand that, and they're going to be like, wait, is that Channing Tatum?
Yeah, right.
Why is he in this? Like, it's a joke that worked for me because I know that history, and you liked the portrayal of Gambit that he was giving off, so I think it worked for you in that way. But I could see someone being like, is that like someone who just like really likes Magic Mike or something? It's like, is that him? What's he doing here?
Yeah, right. Or like Elektra and everything. Like, I mean, it's great to see her. I didn't really know much about her, you know, and you do need to kind of there's a point where you're going too much into fan service, and it's like, guys, you just gotta ease off the gas and let us focus on the characters rather than just the flash.
Yes. But let's talk about some of our favorite parts. We've been a little on the critical side for a bit, but the conversation, the job interview, I guess Deadpool has with Happy Hogan. I thought that was a fun scene.
I thought that was very funny how he's just like, Deadpool couldn't just stop referring to him as a chauffeur, and he's just like, sorry, it's just nerves. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry, but also you just drive people around in a car. Sorry,
Yeah, that was funny. I also thought, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I had fun with this scene for a while because I wasn't sure if Jon Favreau was playing Happy Hogan, working for the Avengers, or if he was playing himself, working for Marvel Studios. And the big guy being referenced was Kevin Feige, who doesn't do these types of interviews anymore. And I was like, I don't really know which one it is. And I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Could have gone either way.
it's got that double meaning. I think that is pretty great.
Yeah.
I also really like the intro sequence for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of gratuitous at points, but I thought that was just hilarious to see like Deadpool first digging up the grave and freaking out because he's like, he's actually dead. Damn it. But then also just like using parts of Logan's body to just kill the TVA guards in between, just dancing to NSYNC. Like that's so silly, and it's just classic Deadpool in my opinion.
I thought there was a funny threat or like thing on Twitter this week because someone like posted that clip, and they were like, if I'm ever dating a girl and she breaks up with me, I'm just gonna start like doing this dance and singing in front of her. And then everybody was like, it's like, why are you fantasizing about getting broken up with? It's
why
like
are
even
you planning this?
Like even in your fantasy that you came up with, you've been dumped. Like, what are you doing?
There's something weird here. We need to get to the bottom of this, sir.
Yeah. But yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's some really good banter between Deadpool and Wolverine in this movie. Just the way that they kind of just jib jab.
Yep.
They're very, very clever and witty and quippy. And like we already alluded to, just Deadpool throwing Johnny under the bus, so unnecessary, so gratuitous to just be like making up all these lies or whatever. I really liked when he's at the TVA and they give him all the new equipment and stuff. He just like comes out and he's like, that guy, definitely a predator.
Oh, right. The tailor. Oh my God. I forgot about that.
Your tailor is definitely a predator, but I don't give a shit. And then he's just being unnecessarily aggressive, like sexually aggressive with the other TVA worker. He's like calling HR and he's like, does your wife work in HR? just like, keeps amping it up with that guy.
Yes. That was pretty fun. Blind Al. I love Blind Al. She's a fucking funny character. Again, like with all of the Deadpool regulars, like I wish we'd gotten more of her because those are his people. Like that's the most fun. Like, and every time, because she doesn't know I think it's a running gag in all the movies. Like she always asks him if he's holding and if he has some drugs she can use, and he's always like, "Hey Al, we have company."
Yeah, she's so funny. I love her. I really like the Thor shit too, where he's just like, "Wait, is that Thor holding me?" Like, like in this very emotional scene. Like, he just kept bringing that up.
Apparently, an early idea for this movie was it was going to start out, and the first like 20 minutes or so was going to be a shot-for-shot remake of Thor: The Dark World, but with Deadpool in it. And I'm guessing that's
that'd be funny.
And I don't know if it was going to be like Thor is in the Loki role, because I think that's the scene in Thor: The Dark World where Thor is holding Deadpool, and I think it's when he thinks Loki is dead, or maybe it was Jane Foster. I don't know, but that's funny. Probably for the best they didn't go with that, but that would have been really strange and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just a little snippet of it. That's kind of all I needed, and I liked the educated wish line. I wasn't lying. I made an educated wish.
Yeah,
that
was good. That was good. Yeah, and then like Wolverine weaponizes that against someone else later, and he's like, he didn't lie. He made an educated wish. It's different.
Yeah, it's very clever. And I love all the fourth wall breaks. Like I mentioned earlier, like there's that scene in the TVA where Deadpool just freaks out. He's like, hold on 1 second. He runs over to have a fourth wall break. I think that's just so funny.
It's great.
Just headbutting and breaking the camera, and then him just constantly just jimming the camera, like Jim from The Office, just looking at it like, there's a joke here. There's a joke here. I hope you get it.
Yeah, he always does that. It's good. Yeah, and then also the fucking dog was great.
Mary Poppins. I actually looked it up before we hopped on. That dog, fun fact, is actually Britain's ugliest dog.
Yes. I remember they sought out a winner of an ugliest dog competition to be in this movie, and this is the one they chose, and they brought her to the premiere and everything. Apparently,
She's
it was
so
like
great.
a whole rescue story and stuff, which is genuinely sweet. But yeah,
Yeah, and who can forget Peter? Peter's
mm-hmm.
fun. He's a good
Yeah,
little side character here, and
mm-hmm.
when he shows up at the end, they're like Peter. All the
Yeah.
Deadpool
Apparently,
just
every
love him.
Deadpool has a Peter, which is fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with
One,
that. That's
yeah,
funny.
one visual thing I liked and thought was funny. I mean, it's like an overplayed comic joke at this point, but the shop that Wolverine and Deadpool are like thrown into in the final battle is called Liefeld's, and it is a shoe store. And one of the main like memes about Rob Liefeld, who was a comic writer and artist, I think, or still is. He was one of the founders of Image Comics. But the thing about him is apparently he could never draw feet. So I just think it's a funny joke that his shop in the movie is a shoe store. So
That's very clever. Wow.
yes, yeah,
And that's kind of the great thing about Deadpool. He's so meta. They can just squeeze in these little references that here and there, even if they can be overwhelming.
yeah.
Sometimes.
And this is the type of joke I like though, because even though the Liefeld feet thing is like well-worn territory at this point, it's a joke that like Deadpool doesn't stop the fucking movie to point out to us. It's just they get thrown into a shop. That's the shop's name, and if you look inside, there are shoes. And it's like, okay, cool. I love that type of thing where it's just there. It's a visual gag,
It's really quick. You don't dwell on it. Absolutely. This movie, pivoting now, it's also, I feel like you can make the argument that this movie's kind of a commentary on multiversal media, kind of skewering them in a way. And I think there's a few reasons why you can make that argument here. First of all, Deadpool's incredibly self-aware.
Yes.
And in this movie, and I think in some previous ones, he's also called out Marvel, but especially in this movie, he's called out Marvel's inconsistent quality as of late. Like even in like the final fight sequence with all the Deadpools, he's like, guys, come on. Like the multiverse shtick, it's not working. Like we've seen, it's not working. It's not working in any of these Marvel movies. And then Nicepool's like, well, I kind of like everything from Endgame on. Like he just can't see the bad in anything. And I think I'll I feel like I'm mostly positive on a lot of the stuff that's been coming out from Marvel, but I will agree that there's been some inconsistencies in terms of quality.
The momentum isn't there anymore. It
Yes.
feels rudderless, and we've talked about this extensively on our show, I think. But
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, Deadpool, he's visiting multiple universes here, searching for a Wolverine, and he's getting these same results of getting stabbed, thrown, and kicked around. And there's an abundance of cameos here, too, that feel overwhelming and kind of the main focal point of the movie is just all these references. And so I think you can make the argument that it's a very self-aware movie, and now that it's like officially kind of this part of the Marvel universe, it's interesting because it's kind of skewering the multiverse in a way. And there have been shows and many forms of media that are excellent portrayals of how good multiversal stuff can be.
Yeah.
What If, Loki, even Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's so many good examples of like how good this kind of multiverse stuff can be.
Yeah.
But I think Deadpool, he's making a pretty good point in this movie, especially in that scene at the end, where he's like, yeah, this multiversal stuff is just, it's kind of unwieldy. It's messy.
Yeah.
And it can kind of be a little unnecessary in some degrees.
I agree. And I agree with the argument made in the movie, but it goes back to something I think we talked about She-Hulk in a little segment on our show when that was happening. I like She-Hulk. I think it's one of the more fun things they've put out in recent years. But like with that, remember at the end when She-Hulk breaks into the Disney Plus app and goes to the office and meets Kevin Feige, and he's a robot doing the most algorithmically desirable thing or whatever, and the show is calling that into question. And I think we both said at the time, it's like, this is creative and fun, but you can't do that and then continue on as you are, because you can't make a joke at your own expense showing us that you understand that this is what's going on and then continue to do that. And I think in a lot of their projects, Marvel has continued to be as sort of bland and spread across the board as they were critiquing themselves for being there. And I think this is kind of a similar thing. It's like, well, this is part of the multiverse saga. This is a multiverse movie. This is leading up to Avengers Secret Wars, probably. So, if you get it, then change direction a little bit, because, like, I don't really think the multiverse saga is working all that well for the most part. There are a lot of things I like in it, and you like too. Like, I think we both really liked the Marvels. Loki was great. Yeah. I really liked Hawkeye and some other stuff. Black Panther 2, I remember liking. I don't remember much about it at this point, but it's like, that's the thing. It's like, it is on Doctor Strange 2. Multiverse of Madness was a ton of fun.
Yes.
Moon Knight was fun, but again, like, nothing's building to anything anymore, or it doesn't feel like it is. It just feels like it's spinning out of control, like Deadpool is saying here. But it's like, well, guys, you did this. Fix it. Don't just point it out. Fix it.
Yeah. You can't just be like, we're in on the joke. And then it's like, well, if you're in on the joke, then you know that there's a problem and you need to fix it. And it's I agree. There's a lot of jokes here where I think that they point out, MCU is kind of at a low point. Multiverse stuff isn't really working out. But, there's room to grow still. And, maybe there's some superhero fatigue, maybe some multiverse fatigue, but, we'll see what comes out with, Robert Downey Jr. coming back.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Shit. That was a decision. And I'm sure that they've got some kind of plan there. I don't know what it is, but something's gonna happen.
Yeah, so I guess like that transitions us. We'll do final thoughts on the movie in a second, but like, what's next for Deadpool and Marvel more generally? Since you brought it up, we'll start with Robert Downey Jr. is Doctor Doom. Why? I
was just reading an NPR article on this today, because they're just like, when he was cast as Tony Stark, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of similarities between him as a person and the character Stark. This one is more of like, wait, what? Why is this happening? Because they're so different. And he's an actor. He's got range. We've seen that in Oppenheimer. He can do all kinds of different roles. But it's odd. It's very
odd. And I've seen the, I think, very valid critique that unless he's playing Tony Stark as Doctor Doom, Victor Von Doom is Romani. Get a Romani actor to play a Romani character, not Robert Downey Jr. And like, I love Robert Downey Jr. He's an amazing actor, and he's great as Tony Stark. But he just won a fucking Oscar. Like, I want to see other things from Robert Downey Jr., and I want to see other things from the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. Like, I want to see Victor Von Doom standing on his own as his own character. I am excited to see one of apparently Marvel's most iconic villains. Why are you tying him at the hip to Tony Stark? Which, even if he's not Tony Stark, that's what you're doing by casting the same guy. It feels like a knee-jerk reaction and a desperate move, because the Kang shit wasn't working out. One, because Jonathan Majors is an abuser and they had to fire him. And two, because it kind of sucked and they kept killing him in every entry, so he wasn't much of a threat. So I think they were like, oh fuck, we can't do the Kang dynasty anymore. Even though they could have recast, but like, what do we do? Doomsday, okay, bring back our biggest star, pay him a shitload of money, bring back the directors of Infinity War and Endgame, okay, we'll pay them a shitload of money too.
This will fix everything.
Yeah, our movies are like bombing more than they ever have, but we can afford like over $200 for these $200 million for these three people alone. This is a good idea. This is going to work out. It's not going to cause an industry-wide crash.
It's fine. Everything's fine. Nothing's on fire. Don't worry about it.
So that seems fucked, I think. But I will keep an open mind. I want it to be good. But I saw that announcement this weekend, and I'm like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah. They're seeing what'll stick, and yeah, I think that they're just trying to go back to like a formula. They're just like, people love RDJ. Let's find a way to bring him back in.
Yep.
Even though we fucking killed him off.
In a very emotionally resonant way that should have been left alone.
But we can't. We got to dig up this other grave now. We already dug up Wolverine. Another one here.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think
Deadpool and Wolverine themselves? What about them? What's next?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was honestly fine with them both dying at the end of this movie. It really seemed that they were going that way, and then it was like, nope, they're still here. And yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily want to see another Deadpool movie. I think this has kind of run its course, and I don't think they really need another one.
Yeah.
So I'm fine if he shows up, and if Wolverine shows up as like a side character. But like we kind of said earlier, I think that, Laura, she should be the Wolverine moving forward. They should find a way to just say, yeah, Hugh Jackman's, he's not here anymore. He's had his time in the sun. And you can have Ryan Reynolds show up from time to time, just as kind of a merc, as a side character. But I don't think that they really should have another big spotlight on them.
I agree entirely. I'm fairly confident they will be around at least through Avengers Secret Wars, which is not the next Avengers movie, but the following one. And then, and then after that, I think the multiverse thing is over, finally. And then we can move on to something else. But I've said this before, and I've been saying this in many places for years, but it's like, I think I said it in our Multiverse of Madness episode, but it's like, it's weird that they keep bringing back the Fox X-Men characters over and over and over again. Like, if it were me, if I were in charge there, I would not be doing that at all, because I would want to put as much distance between the Fox X-Men iterations and my own future iterations that are going to carry the franchise forward. Like, I would want people to fondly remember Patrick Stewart as Professor X and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I introduced mine. And now these guys are going to be around for many more years. And it's just going to make it harder for the people who are cast next. I think it's a really boneheaded move by them to do this. But Hugh Jackman is definitely going to be in Secret Wars. Ryan Reynolds is definitely going to be in Secret Wars. It's a multiverse, like, battle world story, which I've never really cared about seeing, but that's just me. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, we'll see how it goes, and that we got plenty of time for those movies arrive to hypothesize and theorize.
Yes. But any
what are your
concluding
final
thoughts? We just said the same thing.
Jinx.
Yeah. So it's a fun enough entry in both the Deadpool and X-Men franchises. I think it spends a little too much time being meta and undercutting its own dramatic tension, but it's fun, and I think there are a lot of heartfelt scenes and sequences, and that's where it really shines. I think Deadpool works in this trilogy. I think this is a perfect sign-off point for this saga. Didn't love it, but I liked it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm very positive on it. Things could have been a little bit more balanced, I think, in it, but I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's a pretty good addition to the Deadpool franchise. So, yeah, if you like Deadpool, I'd say check it out. If you like superhero stuff, check it out. It's fun.
Yeah. And I think what might be interesting, too, is just this summer has been such a good summer for movies. And the stuff we've talked about on this show has been so good that I think we've just been spoiled in both, like, quality and variety that, like, this doesn't quite live up to a lot of that, but it's a good one of these, I think. It does a good job at what it wants to do. So go check it out. You probably already have checked it out.
Go watch it again. I don't know. But
yeah. Well, you want to transition into some other stuff for a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about some stuff that we've been reading, watching, doing, exploring, engaging with. Dylan, what have you been up to lately?
Well, a little bit less this time because, it's only been 1 week, but carrying on with the Cryptonomicon and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, and also went out to see some jazz music over this weekend. That was fun.
Nice.
Went out to Nocturne, which was a delight, as always, and House of the Dragon, The penultimate episode was this past Sunday, and gearing up for the season finale. A shorter season this year, which is a bummer, but good show.
Oh, boy.
I like it. What about you?
Yeah, again, it's been just a week, so not a ton of new stuff, but RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 9 came to a close this past week, and yep, I'm all caught up. I'm mostly satisfied with who won.
Okay.
It's this queen named Angeria who won. Spoilers, but yeah, she won, and it's pretty earned for her. She's a fantastic queen, but there were some other queens on there, like this Vietnamese queen named Plastique Tiara. I thought that she should have won. Ultimately, she was so amazing, but whatever. They're all stars in their own way, and if they want, I'm sure that they will bring them back for. They're doing another Drag Race franchise where it's because they have a bunch of different franchises across the world. They've got like the U.S., U.K., Vietnam, Mexico, Spain, like all kinds of franchises across the world. So they're doing like World All Stars. So they're taking queens from each kind of location or franchise and bringing them together. So that'll be interesting. Just a big old mix of drag from different cultures, and just to see how
that sounds cool.
All kind of mixes together. Yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes. So. And we've also been rewatching Twin Peaks, actually. I never actually finished Twin Peaks all the way through, but it's a solid show. I love it. I love Special Agent Dale Cooper, and just David Lynch has a fun style in that show, and it's so camp at this point. It's so camp. I love it. But that's it for me this week.
Cool. Well, that's going to wrap up the main portions of our show, I think.
Yes.
So we'll be back.
Thank you all so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll be back next week again. We're going to talk about The Acolyte, and while Niles catches up on House of the Dragon, and then we're going to talk about that back on our normal cadence. But I think we both like talking about Star Wars, so we wanted to go back and talk about The Acolyte. I think there's interesting stuff to say there. But yeah, so until then, where can people find you online, Niles?
You can follow me online at Niles Got No Styles, specifically on Instagram.
Yes.
What about you, Dylan? Where can people find you online?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube at DDayMovies, on Twitch at DDay_movies. You can find us both here, both on YouTube and your podcast platform of choice at Play Pause Rewind, and our second channel, Play Pause Rewind Videos. And that's about it. We'll see you guys next week to talk some Star Wars. Goodbye.
Star Wars.
Peace out.
Bye.